In the last episode, we talked about Crystalyn choosing massage therapy and the pushback and disrespect that came with it. Part 3 opens with something else she was dealing with, the car situation. And from there, we move right into the realities around dress and grooming. Let's get into it.
And that was a struggle for me for a while, because since I wasn't married, the elders thought that they could just tell me what to do all the time. I had no husband, so they all felt like, well, we could just tell her what to do. So it started out little things, like, for example, I was going to buy a new car, and I wanted this cute little coupe, 2 doors, kind of sporty, buying my new car. And I had mentioned it to somebody, one of the elders, that I was going to get a new car and what I wanted. And he said, but you're pioneering. How are how are people going to be able to get in and out of your car? You pick up this person for the Kingdom Hall, or that, what if an older person needs a ride to the Kingdom Hall? Are they going to be able to get into that small car? And I was like, I didn't know what to say. And do you know, I ended up getting a 4-door car. Like, I didn't get the car I wanted because of his influencing me, saying, you're a regular pioneer. You should be able to carry people to the Kingdom Hall and pick them up, and people won't be able to get into that car. That car doesn't make sense for a pioneer. You should get something bigger. And I listened to him, and I did not get the car, the 2-door little sports coupe thing that I wanted. I got the more practical field service car.
Look, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I remember my sister telling me a long time ago, my sister was not a Jehovah's Witness at all. You should just get you a 2-seater. And then mama will stop telling you or asking you to take all her Bible studies to the Kingdom Hall. She said, get you a 2-car car, girl. Get you a 2-seater car, girl. I'm going to tell you right now, after what you just got through saying, I can guarantee you in the comments, somebody's going to say, that did not happen to you. You can buy whatever kind of car you want to buy. That's not true. And we know it's true. We know it's true. But what we were dealing with when we were Jehovah's Witnesses was all cultural. And I'm talking about culture in terms of the way the Watchtower talked, or the governing body instructed people to give talks. And they gave the talk in the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah. And also, I remember there was a portion when you were going through, like, the theocratic ministry school, where there would be a talk that was supposed to be like your local, something local. And that also was never in print. And so sometimes, depending on what congregation you were in, you would also hear something different, because that would be the local needs, what your congregation needs.
Yep.
So you might go and tell someone, and, oh, I was at the meeting and they said this, and then they didn't say that at my meeting. They never said that. Well, that's because it was a local need,
A local need. I will never forget this. 2 boys came to the Kingdom Hall with a high top fade. And the very next week, they gave a special needs talk about the hairstyle.
And how terrible it must have been to be sitting in the audience with that hairstyle. And then all of a sudden, an elder starts talking about how bad it is.
Yes.
And then you have to go and get a haircut.
Yeah.
Like, you can't come back to the Kingdom Hall with that hair.
I don't remember what happened, but, at the time, we were probably saying, yeah, bring it on, brother, bring it on, But you just never realize. And if you want to do it like this, they had their foot on the back of your neck, and you were just always feeling some pressure that somebody was dishing out to you all the time.
Well, there was a lot of talk about modesty among women, and that was subjective also to where you were in the country. Like, different areas, different congregations, there were different standards to what was considered modest. I grew up where you had to wear pantyhose all the time. It didn't matter how hot it was. And then I went to visit someone in Arizona one time, And none of the sisters were wearing pantyhose out in field service because it's hot.
Right.
And but back in my congregation in California, you would not be permitted to go preaching if you didn't have pantyhose on. So it was also dependent on where you lived, what was considered modest or modest enough for the sisters. And I felt like that was also a pressure point, especially when you're young and you're trying to be, fashionable, and everything is style. Like if you're talking about the junior section and you're a teenager, everything is short, everything is tighter, and it was really hard to find something that would be considered modest. And then, like you said, you would see people getting criticized for what they wear, and then that would reflect on me, and I would say, okay, well, I'm not going to buy anything like that because I don't want to get criticized for it. I remember when I was in pioneer school, there were quite a few young people in pioneer school, like teenagers
Mhm.
at my pioneer school. It was great. We had a great time. But there was talk about how some of the girls were dressed. So one of the girls, all of her skirts were at the knee, and when she sat down, they would rise up just above the knee, not high or anything. So she was sitting in the front seat at Pioneer School the first day, and then after lunch, she was told to move. Well, she was told to move because her skirt was too short. And the brother on the platform complained that her skirt was too short. And so she couldn't sit in the front row at Pioneer School. So then she was nervous because she was a very petite girl, and a lot of her skirts were just at the knee or just below. So the poor thing, I felt so bad for her. She would spend half of her time trying to pull her skirt down when she sat down so that her knees wouldn't show. And she even told me maybe I should go shopping and buy a couple of new skirts. I mean, she was very preoccupied with her length of her skirts, to the point where I felt bad for her. It was a distraction for her because she had been talked to
Whoa.
about her skirt not being long enough at Pioneer School. And one time, the one time that something like that really upset me was at an assembly. It was a circuit assembly, and one of the circuit overseers gave a talk saying that he was walking around the assembly hall and noticing so many sisters showing cleavage. And he just went on and on about how cleavage was horrible, that it was disrespectful to the other brothers to have to walk around and see that, and that it was the same as if someone had their pants low in the back and you could see like their crack in the back. Okay. He compared cleavage to that. And so at the lunch break, you saw everybody, like if they had babies, like how you used to have those cloth diapers, they would like put a cloth diaper there. Or some people even went home and changed if they lived close by. They
Oh,
spent their lunch time to
but
go change.
were they really that low? The
No,
cleavage?
no, I'm talking about a V-neck that came down just a little bit. I'm not talking about anything like you would consider real exposure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about very minute, but everybody was so self-conscious that some people, even if they lived close by, went home on the lunch break and changed their shirt. And people were putting their diapers of their baby, because when you have to wear comfortable clothes when you're trying to breastfeed, right? And so some of them were so self-conscious, they just were, I mean, it was terrible. And I felt so bad because I've always been a modest dresser. I was not ever really into fashion, and I was such a rule follower. I just didn't want anybody to say anything to me.
Mhm.
And so I was just automatically self-conscious about, what I wore. But I still really felt bad because some people took it to heart and they felt really bad, and I didn't like it. I thought it was too many men,
Mhm.
older men, paying too much attention to what young girls were wearing. Why
Yeah.
is that such a big deal? to them. And I never understood it. I didn't like it. I felt it was kind of like attacking young women. It was always your clothes. And then they would say your shirt's too long sometimes. If you wore a maxi dress to the floor, then they said it's too long. Like you couldn't win.
You couldn't win.
Like you said, you couldn't win.
I remember one year at our district convention that the brothers were giving out safety pins for the sisters to tie up their skirts and stuff. And I have a funny experience. My fashion consultant, I met her right before I left the Watchtower. And I met her through a coworker. And then I remember I had these nice suits I had bought. And I had a small business seminar that I put together. And I invited this lady. And after the seminar was over, she came up to me and she said, she says, girl, she said, those skirts that you have on, she said, they are way too long for you. She said, you're too petite to be walking around with these long granny skirts on. Lo and behold, I was like, okay. She gets me, goes to my house, audits my closet, takes all the skirts that she thinks needs to be altered and everything. And I'm not even thinking about what's going down. She altered all those skirts and they were all above my knee. So when I stood up, I told her, I said, I can't have nothing too short. And she said, you're gonna be just fine. She said, when you sit down, the skirt will be right at the knee. But I think when I sat down, it slid up a little bit more than my knee. But later on, we learned that they had been talking about me. So I had fun, but I was getting dogged out because I was wearing these short skirts.
Well, and that was another thing that I didn't understand. It was like, if you appeared that you had money to spend on clothes or to spend on a nice car, it was always looked down upon and you would be criticized for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes people, even if they did have a little extra money, they really didn't want to spend it on anything that, anybody at the Kingdom Hall would see, because then they would get, oh, like you're working more hours, and then there'll be a local needs about, working overtime. Why are you working overtime? They would just find something to talk about anytime, if someone appeared to be stylish with fashion or buying jewelry or clothes or cars. They all, oh, I'm getting a new house. Where is your new house? Oh, that's a big house. How much did that house cost? They always had something to say.
They sure did.
If you had material possessions, and if too many people started doing it, then you'd get a local needs about being materialistic.
Well, they were probably talking about me like a dog because I was styling and profiling, but I did feel a little self-conscious though with those short skirts on. It took me a long time to get used to wearing those short skirts.
Well, I was the opposite. I was frumpy dressing all the time because since I was pioneering, I would go to work and then, go out and service after work or before work. So I just, even going to work or even being out doing errands, I was just always dressed like I was about to go in field service. And looking back, sometimes I think people must have thought, what kind of cult is she in with all those long skirts and and high neck collars and loose fitting? I dressed like that all the time.
Really?
Everywhere
wow.
I went. I was not into fashion at all. I was kind of frumpy. And looking back on it, I just think, oh, I wonder what people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses thought when they saw me coming in all my frumpy field service clothes.
Whoa, that is amazing. Oh, I never thought about it like that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. I dressed like that all the time. And then when I stopped pioneering, and really when I stopped going to the Kingdom Hall, I stopped wearing skirts. So I was in pants all the time. And I really didn't even notice how often I was dressed like I was prepared for field service until someone said to me, who I hadn't seen in a while, and we were both not Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. And he said to me, I was shocked when you finally started wearing pants. He said, you wore those skirts all the time. And when you were wearing pants, I was like, oh, something's going on with Crystalyn because she's wearing pants all the time now. And it was when I stopped pioneering, I was in pants all the time. I was like, I'm not wearing skirts anymore. And I started wearing more colors, a variety of colors, different necklines. I started changing a little bit over time how I dressed. But the first thing I did was ditch all those long skirts. I said,
Oh my God. And I mean, when you really think about it though, I think that when people look a certain way too, it also affects your employment and opportunities sometimes because people don't see you as being professional with certain types of dress and grooming. And the watchtower can make you look homely, you know?
yes. I wonder now looking back what some people thought when how I was dressing, but because I was just always dressed like that because I always had to be prepared. And people would call and say, can you go on a Bible study with me at 3:00? Well, I have to go to work first. So I just dressed like that for work, so I was just
Oh,
always ready for field. That was my whole life. I was just always ready at any time. Anybody could call me and they knew I was already dressed.
well, let me ask you this. So, what shattered your whole foundation? I mean, you said that when you were working as a massage therapist, you said that you were already ready to go. What happened in your life that just had you just get out of there and never go back?
Part 3 ends with the question that changed everything. What finally broke it for Crystalyn? What shattered her foundation? And why she never went back? And in Part 4, we bring it full circle. Because it wasn't just her waking up. She helped her family wake up too. Before you head out, feel free to share your own experiences with dress, grooming, or material expectations in the comments. Your story adds to the conversation. See you in Part 4.